So it's cute that Ella thinks she's going to be a scientist, my brother-in-law Craig said, his voice carrying deliberately across my sister's backyard, especially considering she couldn't even pass regular math last year. Laughter rippled through. The group of extended family members gathered around the grill, the kind of laughter that barely disguises contempt. I watched my daughter's shoulders hunch as she sat alone at the picnic table, her 13-year-old frame seeming to collapse. Inward. She'd been excitedly telling her cousin about the summer science program she'd applied to before Craig's interruption. Now she stared at her untouched plate, her face flushed with humiliation. My sister Jennifer touched Craig's arm lightly, a performative gesture of restraint. Maybe we shouldn't— What? It's just a reality check, Craig continued, emboldened by his audience. Not everyone's cut out for that kind of thing. Better she knows now than wastes her time. He looked directly at me, a challenge in his gaze. Mark's just encouraging unrealistic expectations. Single dads don't always know when to be practical. I set my drink down carefully, measuring my response. This wasn't the first time Craig had targeted Ella, but it was the most public, the most deliberately cruel. Before I could speak, the sound of tires on gravel cut through the awkward silence. A black Cadillac Escalade with tinted windows pulled into the driveway, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. Every head turned as the driver's door opened and a woman in a tailored suit emerged, scanning the gathering until her eyes found me. "Mr. Harrington," she called, her professional tone carrying across the yard. "I'm Dr. Samuels from the Westfield Institute. I apologize for interrupting your family gathering, but we've been trying to reach you." She approached with purposeful steps, a leather portfolio in hand. "It's regarding Ella's application and test results. The committee asked me to deliver this personally given the circumstances." The smug expression on Craig's face faltered as curious murmurs spread through the family circle. Ella looked up, confusion and hope warring in her expression. I moved to stand beside my daughter, placing a protective hand on her shoulder as Dr. Samuels reached us. "Test results?" I asked, though I knew exactly what she was referring to. This was precisely the moment I had been planning for weeks. "Yes," Dr. Samuels replied, opening her portfolio with a practiced flourish. Ella's cognitive assessment placed her in the top 0.1% nationally for spatial reasoning and mathematical conceptualization. The admissions committee has not only accepted her into our advanced placement program, but is offering a full merit scholarship. She handed me an official-looking document. We typically don't make house calls, but her scores were exceptional. We wanted to ensure there was no miscommunication. The silence in the backyard was absolute. Craig stood frozen by the grill, tongs suspended in midair. My daughter's expression transformed from shame to astonishment as the implications of this unexpected arrival sank in. And I allowed myself the smallest smile of satisfaction as years of careful planning culminated in this perfectly orchestrated moment of vindication. My name is Mark Harrington, 42, an architectural engineer specializing in structural analysis for high-rise buildings. I approach every aspect of life with the same methodical precision I apply to ensuring skyscrapers can withstand hurricane-force winds and seismic events, analyzing variables, calculating stress points, and implementing solutions with careful attention to detail. This systematic approach has served me well professionally, earning me a respected position at BDG Associates, one of the country's leading architectural firms. It has proven equally valuable in my most important role, raising my daughter Ella, alone since my wife Sarah's death from ovarian cancer 7 years ago. The loss redefined our lives, transforming our family of 3 into a team of 2 navigating grief while forging a path forward. Ella was only 6 when Sarah died, old enough to understand the permanence of the loss, but too young to process its implications fully. In the aftermath, I applied my analytical mind to creating stability amid chaos. I developed routines and systems to maintain normalcy. I researched child development and grief counseling with the same intensity I would devote to complex engineering problems. Most importantly, I learned to recognize and nurture Ella's unique strengths and interests, which increasingly centered around science and mathematics. fields where she showed natural aptitude despite struggling in traditional classroom settings. My relationship with my extended family had always been complex. My sister Jennifer, 2 years my senior, had chosen a more conventional path, marrying her college sweetheart Craig, having 3 children, and establishing the kind of suburban life our parents had always envisioned for both of us. My career-focused approach and marriage to Sarah, an environmental scientist whose work took us around the world, had been viewed with barely concealed disapproval by our parents, who valued stability and tradition above all else. Sarah's death shifted these dynamics further. Suddenly, I was the object of collective pity and patronizing concern. My parenting decisions were questioned constantly, with advice offered regardless of whether it was solicited. Craig, who had always resented my educational achievements and professional success, positioned himself as the authority on proper child-rearing, using his intact family as evidence of superior judgment. Ella became the unwitting focal point of this family tension. From an early age, she displayed the same intellectual curiosity and unconventional thinking that had characterized her mother. She asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. She preferred books and experiments to dolls and dress-up. She struggled with the arbitrary social hierarchies of elementary school, while excelling at complex problem-solving beyond her grade level. These traits, which I recognized as gifts, became targets within the family structure. My nieces and nephews, echoing their parents' attitudes, excluded Ella from activities. Holiday gatherings became minefields of subtle digs and uncomfortable comparisons. Craig was particularly relentless, finding ways to highlight any area where Ella struggled while dismissing her strengths as irrelevant or exaggerated. The situation deteriorated significantly when Ella began middle school. The combination of adolescent social pressures and increasingly rigorous academic expectations triggered her learning differences. Testing revealed what I had long suspected. Ella had dyslexia and ADHD, conditions that explained her uneven academic performance. She processed information differently, struggling with traditional teaching methods while demonstrating remarkable abilities in visual spatial reasoning and conceptual mathematics. Rather than seeking to understand these differences, my family used them as confirmation of their narrative. Comments about Ella's academic struggles became more frequent and pointed. Jennifer's oldest daughter, Maddie, who excelled in the conventional metrics of school success, was held up as the example Ella should emulate. The implicit message was clear. Ella was deficient and my parenting was to blame. I approached this challenge as I would any engineering problem, methodically gathering information, consulting experts, and developing a comprehensive strategy. I enrolled Ella in specialized tutoring programs. I advocated for appropriate accommodations at school. Most importantly, I sought environments where her unique cognitive profile was recognized as valuable rather than deficient. The breakthrough came when I discovered the Westfield Institute, a prestigious program for students with exceptional abilities in STEM fields. Their approach specifically accommodated different learning styles while challenging students at their actual capability level rather than age-based expectations. The application process was rigorous, requiring comprehensive cognitive assessments and demonstration of exceptional aptitude, regardless of previous academic performance. When Ella expressed interest in applying, I supported her fully while managing expectations. The program accepted fewer than 100 students nationally each year. Competition was intense, but I recognized in the assessment metrics the exact areas where Ella's mind naturally excelled, despite her struggles with traditional classroom approaches. The testing was extensive, 6 hours of evaluations measuring everything from spatial reasoning to mathematical intuition to scientific thinking. Ella emerged exhausted but energized, saying for the first time she felt the questions made sense compared to regular school assessments. Still, we agreed to keep the application private, not wanting to face the family's inevitable dismissiveness if she wasn't accepted. 3 weeks before my sister's annual summer barbecue, I received a call from Dr. Elaine Samuels, the director of admissions at Westfield. Not only had Ella been accepted, but her test scores had placed her in the highest percentile in the program's history for certain cognitive assessments. They were offering a full merit scholarship and placement in their advanced cohort, an unprecedented opportunity that would fundamentally change her educational trajectory. My first impulse was immediate celebration with Ella. My second, after reflection, was more strategic. For years my family had positioned Ella as academically deficient, and me as a father unwilling to accept his daughter's limitations. The timing presented a unique opportunity to correct this narrative definitively. After discussing it with Ella, who had endured years of subtle and not-so-subtle diminishment, we developed a plan. Rather than announcing the acceptance beforehand, which would likely be met with dismissive congratulations at best, we arranged for Dr. Samuels to deliver the news in person during the family gathering. The director had originally offered to meet us at my home the following week, but when I explained the situation, she immediately understood the significance of the timing and agreed to the adjusted arrangement, which is how we found ourselves. Standing in my sister's backyard, watching the stunned expressions of family members as Dr. Samuels outlined the details of Ella's extraordinary achievement and the prestigious opportunity it represented. The Westfield program is highly selective, Dr. Samuels continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension surrounding her. We are particularly interested in Ella's approach to non-linear problem-solving. Her cognitive testing revealed patterns of thought that align with some of our most successful graduates, including 2 recent Rhodes Scholars and a Fields Medal recipient. Craig had abandoned his position at the grill and was now attempting to insert himself into the conversation. Well, this is certainly a surprise. Ella's always struggled in school. Common with exceptional minds, Dr. Samuels interrupted smoothly. Traditional educational environments can be particularly limiting for students with Ella's cognitive profile. Einstein himself struggled with conventional schooling, as did many of history's most innovative thinkers. My sister Jennifer approached, her expression a complex mixture of embarrassment and attempted recovery. We're all very proud of Ella, of course. The family has always supported her. I could have contradicted this obvious falsehood, called out the years of subtle undermining and outright dismissal. Instead, I simply placed my arm around Ella's shoulders as she stood a little straighter, her eyes bright with vindication. The program begins in September, I explained to the gathered family. Ella will be commuting to the Westfield campus 3 days a week. The other 2 days will involve remote learning and independent research projects. Research projects at 13. Craig couldn't help himself. Though his tone had lost its earlier confidence, Dr. Samuels smiled politely. Our program is designed to meet students at their capability level rather than arbitrary age designations. Ella's assessment indicates she's ready for university-level work in certain areas, particularly theoretical mathematics and physics. The conversation continued, with various family members suddenly discovering long-held faith in Ella's academic potential. My mother, who had remained silent throughout the earlier mockery, now approached to hug her granddaughter, whispering something in her ear that made Ella smile genuinely for the first time that afternoon. After touring the grounds of my sister's property with Dr. Samuels, discussing program details while the family barbecue continued in subdued confusion behind us, we walked the director back to her vehicle. "Thank you," I said quietly. "This meant more than you know." Dr. Samuels glanced back toward the gathering. "I've worked with gifted children and their families for 15 years, Mr. Harrington. I understand family dynamics better than most." She smiled at Ella. "Sometimes exceptional minds need exceptional advocacy. You're fortunate to have a father who understands that." After Dr. Samuels departed, Ella and I rejoined the barbecue where the atmosphere had shifted noticeably. Conversations halted awkwardly as we approached. Looks were exchanged. My nieces and nephews regarded Ella with newfound curiosity, while the adults attempted normal interactions, overlaid with obvious recalibration of their previous assumptions. Craig maintained his distance for the remainder of the afternoon, his usual domineering presence subdued. When it came time to leave, he approached us in the driveway, his expression carefully neutral. "Congratulations, Ella," he said stiffly. "Sounds like a good opportunity." Ella regarded him steadily. 13, going on 30 in her composure. "Thank you, Uncle Craig. I'm looking forward to finally being challenged appropriately. The subtle emphasis on appropriately wasn't lost on either of us. Craig nodded once and turned away, his usual confident stride notably absent. As we drove home, Ella was quiet for several miles before speaking. "Do you think they'll treat me differently now?" I considered the question carefully. Some will adjust their perspective because they've been confronted with evidence they can't dismiss. Others may double down on their previous views to avoid acknowledging they were wrong. People are complicated, especially family. She nodded, processing this. "I'm glad we did it that way. I was tired of feeling like I had to apologize for being different." "You never need to apologize for who you are," I said firmly. "Different isn't deficient. It's just different. And sometimes different changes the world." The weeks following the barbecue brought noticeable shifts in family dynamics. My sister Jennifer called to invite Ella to help her daughter Maddie with a science project. A transparent attempt at reconciliation that nonetheless represented progress. My mother began sending articles about women in STEM fields, a small but meaningful acknowledgement of Ella's path. Various cousins and aunts found reasons to connect, their previous dismissiveness replaced with awkward but genuine interest. Craig maintained his distance, his pride still wounded. I neither expected nor sought reconciliation there. Some relationship dynamics are best managed through boundaries rather than forced healing. The most significant change, however, was in Ella herself. The public validation of her abilities had unlocked a new level of confidence. She stood straighter, spoke more assertively, engaged with the world more boldly. The approach of the Westfield program energized rather than intimidated her, confirming what I had always known. She wasn't struggling with intelligence, but with an educational environment that failed to recognize her particular form of brilliance. 6 months later, Ella was thriving at Westfield. Her research project on computational models for climate prediction had attracted attention from university professors. The learning accommodations for her dyslexia and ADHD allowed her natural abilities to shine without the barriers that had frustrated her in traditional classrooms. At the winter holidays, we hosted a small gathering at our home, the first time we'd done so since Sarah's death. My mother, Jennifer, and her children and a few close friends joined us. Craig had a prior commitment, a transparent excuse that simplified the evening for everyone. As we shared dinner, my niece Maddie asked Ella about her work at Westfield. Rather than the dismissive comparison this question would have prompted, in the past, Ella enthusiastically explained her current project, complete with diagrams sketched on napkins. To my surprise, Maddie listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful follow-up questions. Later, as the gathering wound down, my sister pulled me aside. "I owe you an apology," she said, uncharacteristic humility in her voice. Craig has been hard on Ella, and I let it happen." "Yes, you did," I agreed, not softening. "The truth." Jennifer nodded, accepting this. "I think I was intimidated by how you parent. You see Ella so clearly, accept her completely. It made me question my own approaches." She glanced toward the living room, where our children were playing a board game together. "I've got some work to do with my own kids." This acknowledgement didn't erase years of subtle undermining, but it represented a step toward healthier family dynamics. "Ella doesn't need anyone to lower their expectations for her," I said. "She just needs them to recognize that her path looks different while still leading somewhere valuable." As the evening ended and our guests departed, Ella and I sat on the front porch, watching the winter sky. "Do you think Mum would be proud?" she asked quietly, a rare reference to the mother she remembered more as a feeling than a collection of specific memories. "Beyond proud," I assured her. "She always said your mind worked like a kaleidoscope, seeing patterns and connections invisible to everyone else. That's exactly what's making you successful now." Ella smiled, leaning against my shoulder. "I'm glad you understood even when no one else did." They mocked my daughter at a family BBQ, then a black SUV pulled up and changed everything. The director of an elite academic program personally delivered news of Ella's exceptional test results and full scholarship, transforming years of dismissal into stunned recognition. But the real change wasn't in my family's perception. It was in Ella's understanding of herself. not as deficient or failing, but as possessing a mind that processes the world differently and valuably. As an engineer, I understand that structural integrity isn't about conforming to a single design, but about ensuring each element functions according to its unique properties and purpose. The same principle applies to raising a child like Ella. My job was never to force her into conventional patterns, but to create conditions where her natural strengths could flourish. Sometimes advocacy requires public vindication, as it did that summer afternoon. More often, it involves quiet, consistent support, the daily affirmations that build internal confidence, resistant to external criticism. Both approaches serve the same ultimate goal: helping exceptional children recognize their value in a world that too often mistakes different for deficient. Today, Ella continues to defy conventional expectations, her mind solving problems in ways that challenge established methodologies. The family members who once dismissed her now reference her accomplishments in conversation with others. But more importantly, she moves through the world with the quiet confidence of someone who knows her worth isn't determined by others' limited understanding. The black SUV that arrived at that family barbecue didn't just deliver academic validation. It delivered something far more valuable: the public confirmation of what Ella and I had always known privately, that minds like hers don't need fixing. They need freedom, opportunity, and occasionally the perfect moment of vindication.